Hello and welcome to Resources and Standards for Teaching High School Personal Finance and Economics. This is for the 2024-2025 school year, specifically for the School District of Palm Beach County. Those of you who don't know me, I am Aaron Standish. I am the K through 12 Financial Literacy Program Planner here for the district. Very fortunate to be in this position. I've actually been in this position for 10 years, really getting to focus on personal finance programming. We do it kindergarten up through 12th grade, which is great. But we're here to focus on high school today. And so I'm going to walk you through, there's been a lot of changes. There's been a lot of changes, not just in personal finance, but a lot of changes for economics. And so for those of you who, whether you're new, brand new, which some of you might be, or even whether you've been teaching economics or personal finance in the district for a number of years, I want to be clear on what these changes are so that when you start your classes for this new year, whether it's first semester, whether it's second semester, whether it's both, you have a clear understanding of exactly what the course is, what's required of you in the course, and exactly the material that you need to be covering in those courses. Because again, I stress, it has changed in recent years. So with that being said, let me go ahead and pull up the presentation. So again, welcome. I'm Aaron Standish. We also have a financial literacy specialist who does a lot of great work with us, and that's Brian Edwards. So he may occasionally reach out to you with some information about personal finance as well, just FYI. So I just want to start by looking at the past first. And really in our district, we've very proud of the fact we've really developed a strong culture of personal finance, from elementary, middle, and high. And so I just wanted to show you real quick that, we have been doing, for those of you new to personal finance, so that we've been doing personal finance for a long time in our district. It was for many years, ever since I think it was a 2013, 2014 school year, it was embedded within economics. We had a half credit course called Economics with Financial Literacy. That course does not exist anymore, eliminated that course out of the CCD. But we've also had a personal financial literacy standalone course. Now, for years and years, it was an elective. That's changed. I'm going to go through those changes here, walk you through some of those here in this video today. But I just wanted you to see sort of where we've been so you can see where we're going. We've had that course since about 2018, 2019, the standalone financial literacy course. And you see we've grown it from, 22 sections. I believe that was the second year of us having that course. Up to last year, we had close to 215 sections. We had almost 5,000 students go through a standalone personal finance course, in addition to the 10,000 students that receive financial literacy within their economics course at that time. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, to know that personal finance is not new for our school district. It is something that has been taught for a long time. We're also going to talk about economics in this and then how economics has been taught. There's nothing really changing with economics. The only change is that that half credit economics with financial literacy course is gone. So let's first talk about the standards, and more importantly, let's talk about the courses that can be used for both the personal finance requirement and the economics requirement. First of all, there are new-ish, right? These started last year for the financial literacy standards. The state of Florida released right at the beginning of the school year last year, these state academic standards for social studies. These are the ones placed within social studies. Specifically, it's a financial literacy strand. So that goes along, there's an American history strand, there's a world history strand, there's a civics and government strand, so on and so forth. There's now a standalone financial literacy strand as well. And you can see there are 89 benchmarks that the state of Florida passed. All 89 of those are not in the course. We'll look specifically at some of them that are in the courses. And all 89 of those benchmarks are wrapped around 7 standards. Now, for those of you who have some history teaching a personal finance course in our district, the standards have changed a little bit, right? So the new ones came out last year, but they were about 60 to 65% the same, like literally word for word exactly the same. So you don't have completely new financial literacy standards to worry about, but you do have some new ones. And so I realized talking to teachers last year is not everybody was really aware of what those changes were. We tried to put out a lot of information, but again, it was really late, right before school started, that all that came out. So please, the very first place, if you're new to this course, or if you're still not super comfortable teaching a personal finance course, the first place you need to start is looking over standards and benchmarks that are required of you to teach that course. Right? Not only the benchmarks, but the state has really started adding in what they call clarifications A clarification is exactly what it sounds like. It just clarifies some of the information that students need to know to be able to master the benchmark. And the state has made very clear that the clarifications, the information that's in the clarifications is just as important as the information that's written in the benchmark. For those of you who have taught personal finance before, and by the way, I was asked this in a presentation today, I use the terms personal finance and financial literacy interchangeably. They mean the same exact thing. I prefer the word personal finance because that's what it is. We're talking about dealing with one's own personal finances that you're trying to manage, whereas financial literacy can sometimes, also mean like business finance and things like that. That's not what we cover in a course like this. These courses are all personal finance. That's why all the new courses, they no longer say financial literacy. They almost all say personal finance now, and that's why. So we do have a crosswalk. If you're curious of how the new ones that started last year compare to the old ones that were in place prior to last year, we do have these crosswalks that you can click on to compare the new ones to the old ones and vice versa, the old ones to the new ones. Now here's where it starts to get a little confusing. You're gonna hear me say that a lot because there's been so many changes starting in about 2013, 2014 for especially personal finance, but also for economics, that there's been a lot of confusion at school sites amongst school administrators and even amongst teachers with knowing exactly what is what with all these different changes that have been made. One of those confusions came in the fact that in 22, 23, not too long ago, when the new BEST standards came out, those are like our new, right, that standards that replace Common Core for ELA and math. Math created also a financial literacy strand of their math BEST standards. Not only that, but they created a course to teach those standards. And that course is called Math for Data and Financial Literacy. So we had a lot of enrollment. You can see we had close to 3,000 students in the past 2 years each that have been enrolled in that course. I just want to make clear that this course cannot be used to meet the personal finance requirement. Why? Because it's used to meet a math requirements, right? That you need 4 math credits to graduate. This course can meet one of those 4 math credits. But I also want to make clear that within the new courses that we're going to talk about here in a second, the new personal finance courses, there are a handful of these math best standards, right? And that was done with the idea behind that math teachers would be able to teach these courses as well. But I can ease your concerns. I know that we primarily have social studies teachers watching this, although I do also know business and math teachers can also teach this course, so you may also be watching this. But I know the lion's share of our teachers have social studies certifications, and social studies teachers, like myself, that's my certification, don't like math, right? I'm here to ease your concerns, somewhat here in that the 5 math best standards that came from that FinLit math strand, they're not super mathy, for lack of a better term. They're just things like identify, compound, and simple interest. There is one that says be able to calculate them, but you don't have to know the formulas. One of them is just create a budget, right? It's analyze spending versus saving. So they're not ones that require you to know and be able to work these complicated math formulas with the students. So I just wanted to ease those concerns of yours. When it comes to economics, we still have economic standards as well. Nothing's happened to the economic standards. Those have been around for quite a while. There's 34 economics benchmarks. Those are all wrapped around 3 standards, right? As opposed we have what, did I say 89 benchmarks in the financial literacy. It does not mean there's more necessarily content covered in the financial literacy part of this, the strand. It simply means that the financial literacy ones are written a lot more specific. Whereas the economics ones, for those of you who've taught it for years, we're not going to dive deep in this video into economic standards. But again, if this is your first time teaching it, you need to, right? I've got a link for you right at the top of this presentation. That's a link directly to the economic standards. They're really generally written. They're not super specific. And all of them are written around one of 3 standards. So number 1 is basically microeconomics, right? So in this half credit course, you're covering all the fundamental concepts of microeconomics. Number 2 is macroeconomics, right? And number 3 is also some macroeconomic principles, but has to do with, international trade and things like that. So every benchmark is wrapped around those three standards. Now, here's where we get to the point where there's been a lot of confusion at school sites on these next few slides that I'm going to show you here. As you're probably aware, we've sort of made it well known that the state of Florida, and this was back in March of 2022, so it's been a while now, did pass in the Florida legislature a requirement that students would have to take a half credit or have to earn a half credit of personal finance before graduation. So that's what you see at the top there. I'm not going to read out those numbers and letters, but that is the legislation in which it says that students must earn that half credit in personal finance. Now, that does not apply, or that first applied to students who entered as freshmen last year. So last year was the 23-24 school year. So it's that cohort that the personal finance requirement first begins. They have to receive that half credit before they graduate. So those would be in the 24-25 school year, those would be the current sophomores, are the ones that are required to receive that half credit. But I need to make clear, nothing has happened to the economics requirement. That's been around forever. There is still a half credit economics requirement, right? The personal finance and the economics used to kind of be married together, right? They are fully divorced now. They are each their own separate half credit requirements. Okay. Here's the courses that can be used to meet the personal finance part of that requirement, right? The first one, personal finance and money management, is your run-of-the-mill half credit personal finance course, right? This is the course that replaced a course that used to be called personal financial literacy. That was the elective that used to be a half credit elective. The course is now remember, there was a new standard. So they came out with new standards and benchmarks. The state decided they just wanted to write a whole entire new course. This course, personal finance and money management, is the result of that. Secondary social studies, secondary business, secondary math professional certifications can teach that course. Another course that can be used to meet the half credit personal finance requirement is a course called Economics and Personal Finance. That is a 1 year, 1 credit course. There's an honors version too, just like personal finance and money management. Now, this course is unique, very unique, in that this 1 credit course, 1 year course, will meet 2 separate half credit requirements, right? So if you take in the whole entire year and get your 1 credit, the student will be marked off for having met their half credit in economics, and a student will be marked off for having met their half credit personal finance requirement. In essence, that course is literally just taking a half credit economics course, a half credit personal finance course, and marrying them together, right? So there's that. That's the 1 year course. And again, same certifications can be social studies, business, or math. So there's some flexibility there at the school site. And then there are also 2 CTE courses that could potentially be used to meet the requirement. The first one's simply called Personal Finance, and that's a 1 credit course, which is typically just part of, in School District of Palm Beach County, we have 4 finance academies, and that is typically part of their progression of courses. So if you're in a finance academy, and great likelihood you need to ensure that students are taking that 8815120. They will have met their personal finance requirement. I have to take another one. And then there's also a personal finance. Again, this is a little confusing because the old social studies course used to be called personal financial literacy, and now they've rebranded the CTE course to be called personal financial literacy. So it is confusing, but it is a completely separate course. And it's an elective course that gets offered within some of our other academies, not the finance academy. So we have very few schools that offer that, but that is an option. And I already said one course that definitely cannot be used to meet the personal finance requirement is that math for data and financial literacy course. So that's the personal finance side of things. What about the economic side of things? Again, as I've already said, these are 2 separate requirements. So here's the courses that can be used to meet the economics graduation requirement. There's a course simply now just called economics. All right. For those of you who taught, when I taught economics, pre-2014, that's what you taught. The course was just called economics. This is before they tried to add in or when they did add in the with financial literacy. Well, it's reverted back to that, right? So I don't want any of you to be surprised that who used to teach economics and financial literacy and you're still doing a half credit of economics, and all of a sudden you see your course is just called economics, and you wonder what's going on. Well, this is what's going on, right? The economics, you see down there at the bottom highlighted, the economics financial literacy, that half credit course no longer exists, right? It then in the Florida in the CCD, the Florida course catalog, it does not exist anymore. And the reason being is because there's a separate personal finance. There's no reason to do economics with financial literacy as a half credit course because there's a separate personal finance requirement. So once they made that separate personal finance requirement, they took out the with financial literacy out of economics. And then there's the course I just talked about on the previous slide, which was simply called Economics and Personal Finance. That's the 1 credit course, which I told you also meets the half credit economics requirement. Or a student could also take an accelerated economics course. That would be your AP Micro, AP Macro, IB Economics, ACE Economics, dual enrollment economics. That reminds me, there is currently no accelerated personal finance course available. There is not an AP, IB, or ACE accelerated personal finance course. We are hopeful, though I certainly can't make any guarantees. This is up to our local universities. We've had some initial discussions, but we're hopeful that for the 25-26 school year, they will have potentially a dual enrollment course available. So the next question you should be asking is, okay, I know that there's a personal finance requirement. I know that there's an economics requirement. I know the courses that can be used, the personal finance requirement, the courses that can be used to meet the economics requirement. Where do I do them? Where should my school be doing those? And that's where it gets even a little more confusing. A bulletin was released. You can see it's linked there, and then there's a number that gave out more information. This was released in February of last year. So, we tried to release it. The state didn't come out with their final information until January of last year. So we tried to react as quickly as we could after we got all the official information from the state. And we tried to get it to schools in time for master board scheduling. Some had already begun and weren't able to change anything. Others did. But in essence, the bulletin, quickly summarized, says that there are changes being made to what we refer to as our student progression plan. If you don't know what the student progression plan is, that's basically what it says, that here's what a student going through the school district of Palm Beach County, here's the courses they have to take to graduate with a Florida diploma, and here's the order, in essence, in which our district is offering them. And so the change was made to say that schools should be offering the 1 credit economics and personal finance course in grade 12, right, in the 12th grade. So that means in that 1-year course, they would be getting both their half credit economics requirement and their half credit personal finance requirement. And a few of the ideas, there were many, many meetings that went behind this final decision, but just so a few of the primary reasons why it went in this direction. Number one, the personal finance material is way, way more suited for upperclassmen. I can tell you, because I know very well, because I was in the committees that wrote these. The standards were written for upperclassmen. The course was designed for an upperclassman. And if you think about material like, having to prepare your own taxes, having to fill out tax forms, having to read a paycheck, having to evaluate student loan options, having to evaluate credit card options, having to make decisions about post-secondary or not post-secondary education. These are all big components of a personal finance course that are much more impactful for an upperclassman as opposed to, say, a 9th grader, which is where we know quite a few of our schools offered it in the past year or two. Now, with that being said, notice the statement below. There's a big however there. We fully understand that many schools may not be quite on that track yet for this 24-25 school year for a few reasons. One, remember, current 12th graders in the 24-25 school year are not required to have personal finance, right? Not required. It would be great. They should have it, right? This is I haven't even done gotten on my soapbox about how important of a course this is, but I have to talk about enough other things to do that on this recording. So that's one reason, right? Is schools have kind of figured out, oh, those students don't need it, which is fine, right? And another was, by the time we released that bulletin in February, a lot had already had on their master board. They didn't want to make changes to their master board yet, but we're hopeful as we go through this year and we get into the next year that those changes will be made. So in the 24-25 school year, your school may be offering a slightly different course progression that you may still be doing economics government, right? That's been your traditional 12th half grade economics, half credit American government. And you may be doing the half credit personal finance and money management course in a different grade level, or may not be doing it at all, right? So we're seeing so far we've seen it a little bit all over the board for this school year. And so I just want to show, here it is in graphical form. Here's what, even though this technically is not a social studies requirement, we do realize that it's primarily falling on social studies teachers and courses. So that's why we kind of lumped it in this with the social studies course progression, especially because it's kind of being married to economics now, which is a social studies course. So you see we're in the 24-25 school year, so nothing else with the course progression is changing. Still 10th world, 11th US. And then you can see econ and personal finance, that one credit course offered in 12th grade. Notice it's in italics for this year because that means it's optional, because those current 12th graders aren't required to have personal finance. Just understand, if you don't offer that economics and personal finance course at your school, you do still have to offer the half credit of economics, right? Remember we talked about that course earlier. Like, that is not optional. The economics portion is not optional. So that's what it'll look like over the next few years. So a real quick review, because that was a sort of a long winding road to get there. It was a lot. The personal finance requirement began for 9th grade cohort last year. It means current 10th graders and below, as we move forward, will be the ones that are required to get that. Those current 12th graders and 11th graders are not required to receive it, but we would still very much like to see them enrolled in this course. And of course, the economics graduation requirement, that's for all cohorts of students. So that's been around for many years. So for this school year, you are very likely teaching one of these courses. If you're a social studies teacher, you're very likely teaching one of these courses. Just economics, right? That's without financial literacy, right? It's a half credit course, meets the economics requirement. Or you're teaching the half credit version of the personal finance called personal finance and money management. Again, half credit meets the personal finance graduation requirement, which is only for those that are going to be in 9th and 10th grade this year. And then we'll keep moving on up over the years. Or we do have several schools already that have followed the student progression plan this year and are offering that year-long economics and personal finance course in 12th grade. So that'll be the one credit course full year that meets both requirements. And again, what I just got done saying in review is that the district's K-12 student progression plan, right, which all schools are expected to follow, though some do receive permission to deviate from the plan. It's not uncommon. It has been changed to schools that schools should be offering economics, personal finance in 12th grade. This year might be a little bit different. Again, I'll repeat that because of the fact that those current 12th graders aren't required to have the personal finance quite yet. Whew, deep breath. So that was a lot. That's one of the reasons we're creating this video, is because I know there's been those major changes, and I just wanted to, if you weren't not able to attend, we've done several sessions where we've talked about it, and so if you weren't able to attend one of those, I wanted to make sure you heard it. So let's talk about some of the support resources available for all of those courses I just mentioned. Myself and Brian in our office, we provide as much full support as you need for any of those courses just mentioned. First and foremost, you have a textbook, right? So let's start there. For the personal finance and money management course, there's your textbook. It's an HMH Wiley book. It's called Introduction to Personal Finance. You get both the students get both a print and digital version of the textbook. The teachers only get a digital version. The teacher's edition is only digital. So you can click there if you have this presentation to get that. There's a lot more resources we can offer for you. The textbook's a resource. The textbook is not the course. I have to repeat that often when I'm in front and giving presentations. You should absolutely not, on the first day, be opening up the textbook and say, let's start from page 1 and go. Reason being is that the textbook is not perfectly aligned with our standards. There's a lot of the big publishing companies haven't caught up with these personal finance requirements yet. So it's absolutely is not aligned to the standards. And the sequencing's off with what we think the sequencing of the course should be. So both the scope and the sequence of the way the textbook is set up are not our favorite. But it is a tool. It is a very good tool. It's a great tool to use to have the students read, right? There's some really good passages in there for the students to read. There's some great digital resources and work that you can have the students that are offered directly through the digital access to this book. So it is certainly a supplemental tool that you should be using, but as you're going to see in these next few slides, we have a lot more tools that I would be using as your primary means of instruction. And there's also an economics book, right? The economics book's a Savas book. So that's a little bit of change. We used to have the McGraw-Hill book. Last year, it changed over to the Savas book. You do get both a student and teacher print and digital editions of the book, and they have a nice digital platform that's called Realize that you can use as well, right? So if you teach this economics, you obviously get that economics book. If you teach personal finance and money management, you just get that personal finance book. If you teach the year-long economics and personal finance, you get both books, which is nice. And if you need more information about the textbooks, reach out to me. We have some recorded sessions. Every now and then we bring in our publishers to do some Q&A sessions. But certainly if you've never been trained on those books and you need some tools, just let me know. There's a few places you can access all of our resources. We do have a Google Classroom. So I'll leave this up here for a few moments, but for all, I said for both the personal finance and money management course, that's the one you see on the screen. For the economics half credit course, and for the year-long economics personal finance course, we have Google Classrooms for all of them. And we have many, many resources. So you can see on the screen, if you just go to the classwork tab, we've got it organized through different themes, and we update that every now and then throughout the semester. So please, you see the join code up there, go ahead and jump into that course. We've got Blender pages for every single course. Right, all three of them have. There's the personal finance and money management Blender page. There's the economics Blender page. There's the economics personal finance Blender page. In essence, everything you found in the Google Classroom is going to be found on Blender as well. Some people prefer one over the other. Now, I don't believe you used to be automatically enrolled in these courses. I don't believe you are anymore through Blender. So when you pull up, you have that My Classes tab. Yours will likely be empty. I've put a bunch under mine to check into. But in case you didn't know, you can add any course you want onto your My Classes tab. If you click, you see there at the top where the arrows are, you click Catalog and then click Course. You can see every single course in the entire district catalog. And all you have to do is star it. Make that star that's gray right next to it, make it yellow, and then it'll show up right there in your My Classes tab. So whichever course you're teaching, go ahead if you can do that and star that. Then whenever you go into Blender, you can get immediate access to it. All right, let's go ahead and look at the scope and sequence in the instructional focus counter. This basically lays out what your course looks like and where you can find resources to teach the required standards of the course. Right? We've got it in a few different versions. So I want to explain what these different versions are that you can access. First and foremost, I sometimes have, especially newer teachers, they don't always, or they ask questions about why we release this. Scope and sequence is probably your most important document when you start teaching a course. Just look at the title. The scope just tells you the breadth of content, right? It's your standards, right? You are statutorily required to teach all the standards of the course, right? You've got a description of the course, which you can find in the scope and sequence. If you don't know, or you'll be able to find it, but if you don't have a scope and sequence right in front of you, you can go to a website called CPALMS, that's CPALMS. That's where the state of Florida puts all the course descriptions. So that's what the scope is. It tells you these are the standards of the course that your students need to understand and master before they leave the course. And then there's the sequence part of it, scope and sequence. The sequence is just, here's a logical order in which you can cover those standards. The sequencing part is really up to you, right? You're required to cover the scope of the course, cover all the standards of the course. Now, the order in which you cover them, unless your school admin, your principal is telling you differently, which some do, some say you have to follow the district sequence. Otherwise, we've spent a lot of time putting together a logical sequence, but, some teachers decide to handle it differently. And the whole purpose of this is so that you can plan, right? So that you can plan your own units and you can plan your own lessons in a logical, cohesive way. You hear me say a lot in my trainings. I may say it a few more times in today's video, but you always need to begin with the end in mind, right? As a young teacher, as one of the first things I was taught, begin with the end in mind, right? What do you want the students to master? You need to know that before you start planning what you're teaching. And so this is the document that helps you do that. Now we've done, I hope, what you feel is a lot of the planning for you, right? So this is an example of what our scope for personal finance and money management looks like. We've got it divided by unit name. You see that in red up there. Our units are divided by standard. So there's 1 unit per standard. So there's 7 units in the personal finance course. There's 8 units in the economics course. Those are divided up a little bit differently. In the blue, you see those are the benchmarks. So that is the information that students need to master, right? And that includes the benchmark clarifications. I already talked a little bit earlier about what those benchmark clarifications are. Notice that several of the benchmarks read only honors or honors only. It means exactly that. So that when the state wrote the class, there are several benchmarks that they thought should only be covered in an honors course and not in the regular course. So if you teach the regular version of these courses, you would not have be required to have students master a benchmark that says honors only. And then in purple, what personally is my favorite part of the scope and sequence is the essential questions. Remember what I said? Begin with the end in mind. Right? That's what these essential questions are. You should post these on the board. You should do some formative assessments, asking the students if they can answer these questions. The only way you will know if students have mastered a benchmark is if they can answer these questions, right? If they can answer these essential questions, then you know that a student has mastered the benchmark. So again, before you start planning how you're going to teach a unit or teach a specific benchmark, look at the essential question, right? And think to yourself, what can I do to get my students to be able to answer this question? In green, you see sequencing, all right? So that is now a logical order that we've given you in which these benchmarks can be covered and in which these units that include the benchmarks can be covered. If it's a semester course, you'll see 2 sets of dates. That's because you might have a first or second semester. We give you an approximate time period in which we think it is best to cover those. But remember what I said earlier about the sequencing aspect of this. And then in yellow, we've got the resources that are freely available to you. Every resource we're going to show you is free. That's one of the best parts about teaching a personal finance course is that we've spent years now gathering, creating, vetting a wide swath of resources that are freely available to use for this course. Because you have to remember, for many, many years, we taught this course with no adopted curriculum, no adopted textbook. We were putting together resources to use for the course. So we still have a large portion of those available to you. And so scopes like these are provided for all the courses I've just mentioned. It's provided for personal finance and money management, provided for economics, it's provided for economics and personal finance. And there you see that there's just an example of what the economics one looks like. Then I mentioned this already, but it's worth repeating. If you're not teaching it this year, you might in a future year. If you're teaching that year-long economics and personal finance course, I said it before and I'll say it again, it is basically each of these half-credit courses, right? It is basically the half-credit personal finance and money management, the half-credit economics, combined together into one year-long course, right? In our scope and sequence that we've created, we thought it was best to cover the personal finance content first semester. So in essence, you're covering all personal finance content, covering all personal finance benchmarks. Now, can some of that bleed to the next semester? Of course, because it's a year-long course in the first semester, right? So you're going to ensure the students master their personal finance benchmarks the first semester. And then as it hits January and you get into the second semester, that's when we've added all of the economics content. We think one, it's best for the students to have a personal finance base before they get into some of the frankly more difficult, a little more complicated economics content. And we also think there's some content in the personal finance aspect of this course that is essential that gets covered in the first semester, right? Things such as, making decisions about post-high school life, if students have to go out and seek student loans, evaluating student loan options, filling out a FAFSA forms as part of the benchmarks of this. So those are things that would be much better for the student to cover in first semester versus second semester. And then you can see there's a breakdown of the amount of benchmarks. And I said it before, just because of the financial literacy aspect, which is covered in first semester, along with those math financial literacy benchmarks that I talked about earlier, just because there's more benchmarks there does not necessarily equate to more content, all right? we still expect in that course that in the first semester, you're covering all the personal finance, all 67 plus 5 of those benchmarks. And in the second semester, you're covering all the economics, which again, were written in a much more broad sense than those financial literacy ones. You're covering those economics ones in the second semester. And then here, I'm not going to read all these out, but here is what the different, I'm talking just the economics. If you're teaching economics and personal finance, this will be first semester. If you're teaching personal finance and money management, this would be either first or second, depending on which semester you're teaching that semester course. You see that each of the units we've got laid out there. There's their unit names and each of the benchmarks that are covered. And then again, if you're teaching economics and personal finance, this would be the second semester. This would be the economics units. If you're teaching just economics that have credit course, this would be either first semester or second semester, depending on when you're teaching it. All right. I hope that made some sense. Some changes that were made last year. Now, again, last year this happened so late, a lot of you may not have noticed, but we made a few changes to the personal finance portion of the course. Number one, there was new standards, right? A lot of new standards. One big change was there's an entire new standard, entire new unit that was added called financial attitudes and behaviors. So please, if you've yet to get caught up to that, that is a key component of building the foundation for the students as they begin a personal finance course, right? Under financial attitudes and behaviors, you're looking at what affects a student's financial decision-making process, right? You know, might be their culture, might be their upbringing. And we really dive deep into what are the cognitive biases that exist within them, right? What cognitive biases exist that make them make certain financial decisions over others? They exist in all of us. And so for students to be able to make smart, wise financial decisions, they need to understand why they're making and how they're making these decisions that they're making, where those decisions are coming from. And so that's really building that foundation for a personal finance course before you delve into the content of the course. So that's that new unit one. That's how you should be starting a personal finance course. We also rearranged a few units. We in the standard, saving is ahead of using credit. We just rearranged them. So now using credit is ahead of saving. And the justification behind that is because that puts using credit right after the buying goods and services unit. And I think that just makes sense. You're already talking about how different ways in which you can buy goods and services and how you're marketed to and things like that. Well, credit's a big part of that. So you want to cover credit when you're covering sort of right alongside when you're covering that, when you're doing that buying goods and services unit. And then it also bumps savings down. And now saving is done right before investing. And typically it makes a lot of sense to cover saving and investing together. Right now, you're talking long-term, short-term, medium-term, and long-term planning. You want to do those together would make the most sense. And then we also added in, you'll see on your scope, where the new books from last year, where they cover material from each of those units. So you can, if you were one who wanted to use a textbook, you could see exactly the chapters and sections that cover the material for that. If you don't like the scope and sequence, we also, we distill it down a little bit further in sort of graphical version. We have this instructional focus calendar. This is basically all the information from the scope and sequence on a calendar, right? A little more some people are a little more visual, but it's the same exact information, right? Or it's the same exact sequencing and same exact scope and all that. So we do this for all the courses we've been talking about. But we don't stop there, right? We provide a lot more additional support documents as well. So let's take a look at what some of these are that you all have free access to. This is what we call our virtual classroom. So this is on the Google Classroom. This is in Blender. We send this out at the beginning of the year. Once we get a list of teachers, we'll send this out to you there as well. This is basically a one-stop shop. This is a slide that has access to every single resource we've talked about. Everything's free. We've got the scope, we've got the focus calendar, we've got what we refer to as, you're going to see the word OER. I don't see it up on the screen, but we have a lot of OER, which stands for Open Educational Resources. It means free. That's all. It's a fancy academic acronym for free. So there's your economics, a virtual classroom, and here's your personal finance virtual classroom. So again, everything you would ever need to teach the course in one slide. We give you the scope and sequence, we give you the instructional focus calendar, but we don't stop there, right? At least the personal finance course. I was just talking about that word OER, open educational resource. We created this open educational resource, what we call our lesson identifier. It's got all the new benchmarks, right, from last year. We take every single benchmark of the course, all the personal finance benchmarks, right? We take all the open education resource providers, and then we link to their resources for each of those benchmarks. So you see up on the screen, this is for your protecting an insurance unit. So if you knew you were at the beginning and wanted to teach about 7.1, we give you probably 10 to 15 resources, excuse me, for every single benchmark that you can freely access. This document, it's gotten a little unwieldy over the years because we've had it for a couple of years. It's about 65 to 70 pages long. So we provide for you 65 to 70 pages of what we feel are some of those better open educational resource providers. You see on the screen, you've got Next Gen Personal Finance, NGPF, you got Take Charge Today, you got Foolproof, you got the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and that's just one page. There's several pages of those. So that we've had a lot of good feedback about that. Teachers who want to see all the potential resources that are available to help teach a benchmark. But we did not stop there, right? We also heard some feedback that this can be a little overwhelming sometimes. So we took it a step further, again, for personal finance, and said, okay, we'll give you a daily lesson plan calendar. Again, this is based off the scope and sequence that you've already seen. All right, but in our professional opinion, we'll take some resources off this OER lesson identifier, and we will come up with a logical progression and give you a resource or resources, right, for each academic day, right, of the calendar, and say, here's a lesson or resource you can use for this day if you want to, cover it in the sequencing that we suggest. And if you do that, you would be able to successfully cover all of the required benchmarks of the course. So we do this, for personal finance and money management. We do this for the personal finance. We do it semester 1 and semester 2. That's obviously the same thing, just a few days differ. But if you were teaching the economics of personal finance, you could use this for the personal finance portion for that first semester where you teach personal finance. You could also use this if you chose. All right. So you have free access to this document as well. One thing I want to make you aware of, we also provide unit newsletters. This is something we had in the hopper for a long time. We've been preparing on them, and then we've been preparing for them. Then again, I talked about NGPF. We'll talk a little bit more about them here in a little bit. They release their own parent newsletters, so that again got our motors going. And then it took us, a good 8 to 10 months to fine tune our own. We wanted to see what was already out there, see if we could use what was already out there. We wanted to fine tune it a little bit to fit our district. And we have these now. So, one powerful part of a course that covers personal finance is the parents become interested in it, right? We find that many research studies find that, adult financial literacy levels are quite low. And we know that that's one of our impediments to teachers. It's one of our impediments to students gaining a lot of financial literacy knowledge because a lot of it doesn't get reinforced at home because their parents don't have much personal finance knowledge and aren't very comfortable in their own personal finances. So we created these parent newsletters to be that link, that connection for the student at home. They're completely digital. So whatever digital means you use to communicate with your parents, you can use this with. Again, completely free. This poster, which is clickable, this poster is usually live. This is just an image here, but we've got basically one newsletter for every personal finance unit, right? It's all standards based. There's a few different sections. One, it's where we say, hey, here's what your students might be doing in the class. And it might be a game they might be playing. It might be a lesson they might be playing. Then we say, oh, here's something you can do to extend the lesson to home. And we give them some activities that if you want to talk about this with your kids at home, here's some things. And then at the end, we talk about parents' own personal finances. We say, oh, here's the credit unit. Here's the, if there's something within credit, that you're interested in learning more about, we give them local resources, almost all in Palm Beach County, if not, then in the state of Florida. Here's some local resources in which you can go and get more information if you personally need help. So again, it's a great way to get some active discussion at home because ultimately, if you want to change students' behaviors around money, you need to get them talking openly more about money, and especially openly with their parents, who have a tremendous impact on how they're going to feel about money. So those are freely available. You can access here. We've got a lot more additional supplemental resources too. I'm going to go through some of these relatively quickly because you have access to this presentation. You can dive a little bit deeper into some of these on your own. Here's some of our favorite OER, the Open Educational Resources, again, which just means free to access. You know, when I first started, this is my 10th year, or I just finished 10 years in this position as the program planner for personal finance education. When I first started, there was very few providers who had any sort of quality personal finance material available. It was very few. That's changed a lot. We tend to only promote, I shouldn't say only, primarily promote resources that aren't branded. And I'm not saying brand resources are bad. I'm not saying that at all. We have a lot of very valuable partners in the financial institution space who do brand some things, and that's understandable. We also need to be careful in that our students aren't being used as marketing tools, right? So we're very sensitive to that. And you find, you know, everything on this page, at least that you see, we tend to lean towards either nonprofits, right? There's no profit motive there. Nor is there any customer acquisition motive there, like some others may have, or government institutions. I don't see any up on this page. That's Federal Reserve Bank, or educational institutions. You know, Take Charge Today comes from the University of Arizona. We know none of those three institutions have any sort of profit motive. They're not selling product. So that's where we tend to go. Like I said, we're very sensitive to our students being marketed to. So here's some additional ones. I told on I didn't even mention these ones. You know, NGPF is really one of the leaders in the space. Not just great curriculum, but also they do great professional development. They do great advocacy around expanding access to personal finance around the country. So I'll talk a little bit more about them in a few minutes. Take Charge Today, I said, out of the University of Arizona. You know, they provide a lot of lesson plans for about any personal finance subject matter you need, including PowerPoint presentations, which I get asked about a lot, and assessment questions as well that they help provide. Then the St. Louis Fed, which is great, that they have both It's Your Paycheck and the Making Personal Finance Decisions. Those are both standalone programs with sort of your traditional lesson plans, very involved, very comprehensive, very high quality. Here's a few other ones up here. CFPB, which is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, against a government institution. They've really come on in the last few years. They've been releasing their own K through 12 lessons. So, you know, we give you a link there in our lesson identifier document and in our daily lesson plan calendar. You'll probably see a lot of CFPB resources. Here's some digital modules, right? The digital modules that, what I mean by digital modules is simply that the students can go online and access a modular based assignment, right? That's what I mean by digital modules. Foolproof has been one we've had partnerships with for many years. They have a Florida specific site. You know, their thing is they teach students to be defensive consumers. We really love their messaging. And most importantly, we really love their modules. They have really modules that are taught by peers. They're generally young people in the modules talking to other young people. And, you know, we have a few different documents to help you set up your foolproof accounts. Khan Academy has just recently released an entire standalone financial literacy course. So the benefit to using Khan Academy's EverFi is their single sign-on. That's SSO. You see that acronym up there. What single sign-on means is there's a tile in our district portal, right? So you can just go in your portal, search Khan Academy or search EverFi, and you would automatically be rostered into that program. And most importantly, the students will automatically be rostered into the programs. You should be able to go in there and that your courses should already be created for you. Now, rostering might take some time at the beginning of the school year, but that is very powerful for you don't have to give them any codes to sign up or anything. It's just simply students go to your portal, access Khan Academy. You can then assign certain modules within Khan Academy, within EverFi, to have the students complete right within the portal. So that's a nice little feature to have. And same with EverFi. All right, you can see EverFi down there, or you can see what the EverFi portal looks like. And EverFi has several courses. They have their main course is just called financial literacy, but they have several other courses at the high school level as well. They have ones that's focused just on investing, right? And they have one that's just focused on credit, right? So they've in the past few years they've added quite a few. If you haven't looked at what they have to offer in a few years, I'd say it's worth your time to go back and see what courses they now have available through EverFi. For those of you looking for a consumable workbook, I know you do get a workbook through the textbook. I didn't mention that earlier, but they do give you a consumable work with your students. There's also this freely available one. This is offered through the Florida Council for Economic Education. It's recently been updated so that it has the new units and new standards in it. So it's called Financial Freedom, again, offered for free from the Florida Council on Economic Education. So you can go to that website. We provide a link if you can get this presentation up where you can order a class set for your entire class. So that's a nice little benefit. Junior achievement is been around for a while in our district. So I just wanted to quickly show you. They have several classroom programs. Their model typically is they get volunteers, usually people who work in various businesses throughout our community, and they come in and teach lessons on, you see some of the different subject matter that they can come in and teach lessons on. I know they do have a way that you can also get digital access and teach it yourself. But it is an option, right? We've had plenty of teachers over the years use various JA programs, and a lot of it depends on the quality of the volunteer that you get. So hopefully you'll be able to get linked and talk to JA and get access to a quality volunteer. So I just wanted to show you just so you can reach out to JA if you have questions about some of these programs. But this is just an example of the secondary programs that they have available for you. Right, quite a few, right? We just want to show you, we talked about NGPF earlier. I just want to make sure those of you who are brand new to it know how to get onto it. First of all, you have to have an account. Well, I take it back. You don't have to have an account, but if you want to be able to see teacher keys and test questions, you need to have an account. So you probably want to have an account. That they're very, very protective, as they should be, of their teacher keys. They had, I know, some problems in the past of students getting a hold of those. So make sure you sign up for an account. I show you there where you can just go and sign up for free. You can click their curriculum tab. You can see they've got divided by unit. They've got a whole semester course of what they suggest. A lot of our resources that we use in our daily lesson plan calendar and in our OER come from here. So this is where we're getting a lot of them from. There's what the semester course looks like. Again, I'm just showing you through there. There's where you can access the various units. And here's just an example of what it looks like. This is the credit unit. You can see not only do they have the lessons, which you see there in blue with the blue pluses next to them, but then if you look on the right, I tend to sometimes prefer their activities. They've got some supplemental activities that aren't necessarily in those lessons. I like to look over there for some other things to do in the classroom. And again, a lot of those activities are in our daily lesson plan calendar already. They also do two other things that I love, which is called FinCap Friday, which stands for Financial Capability Friday. It's a few minute long lesson on a current event topic that then asks students a few questions and get some dialogue going. It's a great warm up for the end of the week. It lasts maybe 5 to 10 minutes at most, but it keeps you up to date with what's going on in personal finance in the world. Then they have questions of the day. You'll see on our daily lesson plan calendar, we use a question of the day for every day on the academic calendar. Right? It's a great warm up. Right? Great warm up to start. Again, it's literally you ask them a question. It gets the students thinking and talking about personal finance for the day. That's why I love opening up a class with the question of the day. And then they have their arcade games. They have a wide variety of these arcade games. Each of them has reflections that go along with them, so they can not only play them, but then you can have a nice reflection discussion with them afterwards. So I highly suggest playing the games before you assign them so that you understand exactly how these games work, but many of them are quite fun. Take Charge Today, you have to have an account to access. Again, it's free. So you see when you go to Take Charge Today, again, this is through the University of Arizona. You can just click that Create Account button. The advanced level is high school, right? So for grades 9 through 12, you should be accessing the advanced level of the curriculum. The 4,000 minutes is for a semester. That is also where I find the best lesson plans are. So I would access the one where it says 4,000 minutes. And then you can see here, I just show you, here's what their units look like. Here's what a one lesson would look like. Again, they give you both a lesson plan, and every single lesson comes with a PowerPoint. So I know a lot of our teachers like that they come with presentations. The NGPF ones I just showed you, they don't come with PowerPoints, but most of the lessons come with Nearpods, and it's very easy to import a Nearpod into Google Slides. I'm not going to show you how to do that here, but you can probably just Google it real quickly, or you can reach out to me and I can show you how to import that into Google Slides. So they do also offer presentations. You just have to know where to go to get them. Here's what It's Your Paycheck looks like. I talked about that one earlier. It's 9 lessons. Again, each of those lessons is probably going to take you 2 or 3 days to do. Very comprehensive, very high quality. You do not need an account to access these. Anybody can just freely go in and access those. And same with their other program, which is called Making Personal Finance Decisions. You can see that's 10 units, each with 2 lessons. Each lesson is going to last a day or two. But again, I can't stress enough, these are really high quality lessons that really engage the students in a wide variety of activities. So I highly suggest these lessons. Econ EdLink you can also use for econ. It has both econ and personal finance resources online. I think this is going to be refreshed pretty soon, but you can start to take a look at econ EdLinks. You can filter them if you're looking for a specific topic. So I just wanted to show you what an econ EdLink looks like. And here's the CFPB. I already talked about the CFPB. Again, you don't need an account to create this. You can also filter by topic for the CFPB. So I highly suggest that. Here's what Foolproof looks like when you first log in, or when you first go to the page. You're going to want to click the login button, and you're going to go to teacher login. All right. And if you haven't yet signed up for an account, you're going to need to sign up for an account under Foolproof. All right. This is each of the modules, right? I told you Foolproof is modular based. So here's your high school components. You can build your own course. I highly suggest doing that because you see I squared there the modules. I would build a course and only have the students do the modules. The assignments and the activities require you to do some of your own grading and maybe printing. The modules are fully housed in Foolproof, and they're also graded by Foolproof. So that is why I always suggest at the beginning of the year, create your own curriculum. You can see on the left hand under the curriculums menu where it says create curriculum. I would click create curriculum and then just choose the modules. Do not choose the assignments and activities. Econ Lowdown is a fully online platform. That is one where students have to sign into the platform to do the work, right? I believe that some of it can be uploaded through Google Classroom as well. But Econ Lowdown is a really powerful. It's during COVID, back when we were shut down in 2020 and 2021. We had a lot of our teachers using Econ Lowdown as that easy portal to give students some work. And then it's just an example of what it looks like. If you want to add an assignment to your course, you just hit the plus button and it automatically assigns that to your course. So how about some specific economic supplemental resources? Pretty much everything I said in the previous was primarily focused on personal finance, but we do have some economics focused supplemental resources as well, which some of you in here are just teaching economics. Right. First and foremost, we do also have an open educational resource document we provide for that. It looks a lot different, right? But it's the same idea, right? You can see there at the bottom, it's a Google spreadsheet, a Google sheet that we provide this in, and it's at the bottom. There are tabs. We split it up by unit. So remember, there's 8 units, right? So that's why it's split up like that. Notice it says, like the first one says unit 1 or 8. Well, why doesn't it say that? Because if you're teaching economics, half credit economics, it's unit 1. If you're teaching economics and personal finance, the year-long course, it would be unit 8, right? Because you're doing that after the personal finance. And so these are divided by unit, but we went a step further. We also, because I told you they're much more general, much more broad in the personal finance, we also went in and divided up by topic within each unit. So you see on the first, and that's the first unit, we have scarcity as a topic. We have opportunity cost and trade-offs as a topic. We have production possibilities as a topic. All right, so it's divided a little bit further. And then we've got full lesson plans in there. You've got videos in there. You've got podcasts in there. You've got articles in there, and a few other resources in there. All right, so you've obviously got a lot of things. Like we have the Savas textbook with economics, which provides a lot of resources, but we've also tried to provide some additional OER as well. Here's your list of free sites, right? I really lately have been used heavily. These two here in the middle, Marginal Revolution University, which is MRU. They primarily go by MRU, and also Econifol, which is relatively new. These are two sort of new kids on the block in the econ space. They've done a really good job of creating really high quality, free to access resources, along with Econ EdLink, which is through the Council for Economic Education, and Econ Lowdown, which is the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Those also have really good free economics resources. If you're looking for videos, right, a lot of teachers love videos that either reinforce or introduce economics concepts because some of them can be a little complicated. Khan Academy, again, has a whole entire economics course, although those are a little more maybe detailed for regular honors. Those are primarily geared for AP courses. There's also Crash Course Economics, which is really good. That was created several years ago to introduce some economic concepts. And then there's ACDC Leadership, Everything Econ. If you don't know, that is Jacob Clifford down there. He's well known for creating really high quality, high energy economics videos. Really, he does a phenomenal job of being able to take some pretty complicated economics concepts and making them pretty easy to understand. He's also the host of Crash Course as well, so you'll see him in Crash Course as well. How about some additional programming that we do here on personal finance? We don't just provide curriculum and resources. There's other programming that we also do. We help support the Florida Stock Market Challenge. So that's offered through the Florida Council for Economic Education. If you want to take part in that, there's the website. You can go to fcee.org /SMC. We will have a training on that at the beginning of the school year if you're interested. The FAU Center for Economic Education is going to do a training on how to better use and access the Florida Stock Market Challenge. And also through the FCEE, the Florida Council for Economic Education, they also do the budget game, which is a really cool resource to teach budgeting. It's real life. It's as best they can. It tries to simulate sort of a student who's under a time crunch, who has to sort of budget their time, budget their money, who has these irregular expenses coming in. It tries to do that the best it can. So if you ever want to access the budget game, they both start really early in the school year. I don't have the dates in front of me, but I would suggest getting on those pretty early in the school year to sign up your students for. We also have a financial literacy certification program we've offered for a couple of years now for students. It's not a curriculum program, it's just a certification test. Right? There's nobody that sees a test result except for you. The students who pass it, I believe have to pass the 70%, they get this CFL, which no, it's not an industry certification, but it still is a nice credential to be able to show to potential employers, to be able to show to potential post-secondary institution or secondary or colleges and universities who they're applying to, that they have this extra skill that maybe other students don't have. So we offer that fully for free. We have an agreement with WISE, Working in Supportive Education, that they offer it for free in Palm Beach County. Please consider offering this opportunity to your students. It is a very unique opportunity that the students can earn this credential simply by passing this test, and nobody has to pay, or I should say, nobody at the school level has to pay for it. Right? We've had about 2,000 students that have earned their CFL, so we're proud of that. But man, we would love to see more students be given this opportunity. So if that's something you're interested in, just let me know. We'll help get you set up. We have in recent years done some partnerships with the United Way, and we set up VITA sites. If you don't know what VITA is Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. And in essence, the students in your class, or it might be an after-school club, are the volunteer tax preparers. It's a tremendous opportunity for them to learn a skill, number one, for them to learn soft skills, number two, because they will have clients coming to them that they have to prepare tax returns for. So we've done this in several high schools the past 2 years. We did it in 2022 tax season and 2023 tax season. If it's something you think you might be interested in being and helping support, in essence, you become the site coordinator at the school. We do have a stipend, an $1,100 stipend available if you're interested in becoming a site coordinator that we can offer you. In essence, what that means is the students have to pass tests, showing that they have the knowledge. They don't have to do it's very rudimentary tax returns. They're never going to do a super complicated tax return. But you do have to learn some of those basic tax laws. So and then get the students, so you have to learn it first and, take a few tests to pass. And then the students have to pass those tests as well before they can be put in front of clients. So it's a cool program. So if it's something you're interested in doing, let me know and we'll help you get that set up at your school. And then you can see there's a Santa Lucia's a couple years ago on the left. That was at Lake Worth a couple years ago on the right. We've really, not only is it a great experience for the students, right? It's a wonderful service you're providing for the community, right? It's for low to middle income earners, which is typically like $70,000 and less. For them to have a place to turn to help them for free, actually prepare and file their tax returns for them. There are these Go Teach Finland Innovation grants. Unfortunately, I think the window might be closed now, but beyond, maybe not. I think it closed in like the first week of August. So by the time you're watching this, it's probably closed. But be on the lookout for that. Those are $5,000 classroom grants. I know from having judged these in the past, there's not a lot. There's a specific Finlit category, financial literacy category, and they don't get many Finlit applications. So please, if you have an idea that you think you may need $5,000 for, consider applying, right? And then finally, we do a lot of professional development as well. We recognize that a lot of the teachers who are new to this may not have a background at all in any sort of personal finance. So we try to either partner with institutions or provide it ourselves various avenues to earn professional development. So first, let me talk about the on-demand program. This is a program we started last year. The idea behind this was, just to give teachers avenues to collect more personal finance information. We hear constantly that one of the impediments to getting some teachers to teach a personal finance course is they don't feel comfortable. They don't feel comfortable in the material. They don't feel confident they'd be able to teach it to students. So these on-demand modules were designed for adult learners to learn more about certain personal finance topics, exactly what they are. So they are created and applied through Next Gen Personal Finance. But what we did was we set up a program where we set it up through our professional development system, e-learning, and you can go and enroll there. And in essence, you can then complete the module through NGPF. We have a list right now of 20 modules that you can complete. They have more than 20 available, but these are the 20 that are only available to earn points and stipends for. And then you can apply to earn both points and potentially a stipend for completing those modules as well. So that's the idea behind it. So what you needed, the first step you would do is go to e-learning, look for on-demand or NGPF on-demand modules. That's step one. Step two, you'd have to then, we have a link if you go on e-learning, but you can go yourself. You have to go to NGPF and enroll in one of the on-demand courses. This is all linked for you on these documents you see there. Step three is then complete the module. Each module is about an hour. It's done on Nearpod, so you have to do it in one sitting, right? I have found I've done several of the modules. I can typically get them done in less than an hour, right? So they're pretty quick and they're great information. You're not going to like dive deep into a topic. It's sort of an introduction to a lot of these topics. Your fourth step is NGPF gives you a certificate of completion. They put that in your NGPF account for you. You have to go to your NGPF account, download the certificate, and then upload it through e-learning, right? Through the course. Because we need to get that certificate. We need to see that you've completed it, right? So that's your four main steps, right? And then your fifth step, if you did want to earn points, there's also a survey that you have to complete within e-learning. That's required for every single course in e-learning, right? There are 20 courses available. Each course, you can get up to 2 in-service points. So if you complete all 20, you can get up to 40 in-service points for completing these modules. Now, we also have available that you can potentially earn a stipend. The stipends are for those who have recently taught or who are teaching or getting ready to teach a personal finance or economics course, right? So anybody can earn points, but unfortunately, if you're like an ELA teacher or an elementary teacher, you're not going to be able to earn stipends. We only have a finite amount of money we can give out for stipends. So we want to make sure it's for the teachers who either have been or are going to be teaching personal finance. So if that's you, you can do the then really sixth step, which is we've got a form, which there's a link there for it that you need to fill out to let us know that you have uploaded a certificate and you're seeking a stipend and you meet all the criteria. You can read some of these documents, but I've basically set all the criteria. Here is the kicker though, that stipend form needs to be given to us within a month of completion of each module, right? So that's not an arbitrary time that we're setting. That's set by pay. We have to do this through, what happens is it comes to us and we have to submit for a stipend through our payroll department. Well, they have deadlines. And so, once it gets much past a month, they're not going to be able to put it within payroll. So please be mindful that if you're getting up close to that, oh, it's been a month since I've completed a module, just fill out that form and submit it. Let us know it's there. So then we can start our process of filling that out. We do a lot of partnership with the FAU Center for Economic Education. We always have. When I tell the story a lot, but when I first started teaching in the district and I first started teaching economics, I would not have been half the economics teacher I would have been if I had not gone to many of the sessions that the FAU Center for Economic Education offered. All right, so most of them are in person. Most of them are on the Boca campus, and most of them are 4:30 to 8. So I know that gets sometimes a hurdle for some teachers, but that's the way they do it. We've maybe if we can get enough teachers emailing them and asking for some different locations and times, maybe we can get that done this year. And they've started to offer stipends for a lot of theirs as well. I know they have some grant money that they can offer stipends for. So be on the lookout for those as well. Really, really high quality PD sessions. The Jumpstart Conference, that's the Jumpstart Coalition for Personal Financial Literacy. They have a yearly conference for teachers. They often give out scholarships for this. I always tell teachers, you need to go to these conferences. They are fantastic. I've been lucky enough to be able to go to quite a few of them. I always come back feeling, sort of motivated and renewed and excited because I always learn a lot. Not only do I learn a lot of new things about some new programs and new research studies or whatever it might be, you get a network with other teachers doing the same thing that you're doing, which is really cool, right? So consider applying for one of those scholarships. I already talked about the NGPF. There's on demand. They also have live 1-hour sessions almost daily. If not, I believe it is daily. They have several sessions daily that you can, they do it via Zoom. They also have these certification courses. If you've never done one of those are, I believe 9 to 10-hour courses that end with a test. There's these micro credentials they do for various topics. I've done several of them. They're high quality, and I always learn. Again, if you're someone who feels like you lack some of the personal finance knowledge, it's a great place to turn to get some more personal finance knowledge. And then, of course, I always put a plug in. One of the things we started to do the last several years, we do a lot of teacher personal finance sessions as well, right? What about your own personal finances, right? I haven't done this for a long time now. I know from having talking to many a teacher, most are pretty uncomfortable in their own personal finances, and yet, you've got these students in front of you that you're required to teach personal finance to. That's the way I felt when I first started teaching it, right? That's why I become so passionate about this. And not only that, but, it's unfortunate, but, a lot of the financial products available to you as a school district employee are substandard, right? And unfortunately, a lot of salespeople push, really expensive, substandard, for lack of a better term, products. And so we try to do sessions to sort of just educate. We do not advocate. We do not sell anything. Every single person you're going to see in any training that I put on for teaching of personal finance is, just like I said with our curriculum, is either going to be from a nonprofit. Again, no profit motive, not selling anything. Or they're going to be from a government institution. We actually bring in the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, to do quite a few trainings. Or they're going to be from an educational institution. Again, somebody who can't financially benefit from the advice or education they may give you during the training. So be on the lookout for that. We do several of those throughout the year to help our teachers. And then just as an FYI, in case you ever go down to middle school or no middle school teachers, we have a middle school course. We keep trying to promote it. We have about 6 or 7 middle schools that do it, but man, we'd love to see more. And we do a ton for elementary as well. If you have a significant other who's an elementary school teacher, share with them that we have a wide swath of resources that they can freely access. And we do a lot of PD for them as well. So that was a lot, right? I appreciate you, sticking it with us to the end. Oh, as a special thank you, if you happen to stick to the end here today, let me know. Send me an email. All right, in the subject line, put "I made it to the end." All right, and we will send you one of these nice, fancy Finlit branded polo shirts. We have a couple different colors for you to choose from. So I appreciate if you were able to make it to the end. If you want a copy of this presentation, there's that website there. That's l.sdpbc.net/lecwa. This presentation will come up, or you can use that QR code right there. The presentation will come up as well. I can't thank you enough for sticking through me throughout this presentation. I wish you the best of luck as you get the school year started. Please, if you have any questions or need any sort of support at all, happy to come to your school, happy to take a phone call, happy to answer you over email, happy to answer you in chat. Whatever help you need, just let us know. Thank you.